They
He
said
was
it was
just
just another
smiling at the
family
crowd,
show.
and in the
But
next
30
second there was
seconds
blood
later,
all
there
over
was
the
blood in the
stage.
water, and a man was screaming for his life. Welcome to Animal Story, where we dive deep into true encounters between humans and nature. If stories like this move, haunt you, or make you think twice about the wild, we invite you to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover what really happened behind the glass tanks and show lights. Now let's go back to that day, the day everything changed. It was a packed afternoon at OceanLand Park in Southern California. Families lined the seats of the Shamu-style stadium, cameras, ready, kids holding cotton candy, the smell of popcorn in the air. On the stage, Alvaro Mendez, 37-star trainer, former Navy diver, and local celebrity. The crowd cheered as he stepped to the edge of the pool, flashing that signature smile of his. Right behind him, a 12,000-pound killer whale named Nero sliced through the water with a grace that belied its size. Alvaro raised both arms. Nero responded, leaping into the air in a perfect arc. The splash soaked the first 4 rows, and everyone laughed. It was picture perfect. For a moment, it felt like magic. Then the moment snapped. Alvaro turned his back, waving to the crowd. Behind him, Nero went silent, completely still in the water. Trainers say orcas are predictable until they're not, and this one, he was about to change everything. The whale lunged. There was no warning, no sign anyone could see, just a blur of black and white muscle erupting from the surface. Nero clamped down on Alvaro's right leg and yanked him into the pool like he weighed nothing. People thought it was part of the show. At first, some clapped, even laughed nervously. Then the screams started. Alvaro surfaced, once gasping eyes, wild with panic, trying to break free. Nero spun him underwater again. Blood spread like red ink on blue canvas. A woman screamed. Children cried. One little boy, maybe 5 or 6, stood frozen, whispering, "Is he gonna die?" The safety team rushed to the edge, but nobody dove in. Not yet. Not with Nero in full control. Alvaro's headset was still transmitting faint crackling through the speakers above the tank. "Let go. Nero, please." Then silence. It took 28 minutes to retrieve his body. By then it was too late. What went wrong? How could a seasoned trainer, someone who claimed to know Nero better than anyone, end up dying in front of a live audience? Was this just a freak accident, or the result of something darker beneath the surface? In the next episode, we'll dive into who Alvaro Mendez really was, his journey from war veteran to star trainer, and how his unshakable bond with Nero may have blinded him to the danger growing right before his eyes. Don't miss what comes next. Subscribe to Animal Story for exclusive true stories about wild encounters, tragic mistakes, and the animals who never asked to perform for us in the first place. This story is only getting started. Before the screams, before the headlines, before the blood in the water, there was Alvaro Mendez. To the public, he was OceanLand's golden boy. Tall, tan, always flashing a confident grin beneath his signature blue trainer wetsuit. Kids wanted to be him. Tourists came to see him. Trainers admired him. Behind the scenes, people joked he could get a whale to dance just by smiling at it. But Alvaro wasn't always a showman. He was born in Tampa, Florida, the son of Cuban immigrants. His father worked long shifts at the docks. His mother cleaned hotel rooms along Clearwater Beach. They didn't have much, but what they had, they gave to Alvaro: books about the sea, old VHS tapes of Jacques Cousteau, and beach trips that sparked a love of the ocean that never faded. He enlisted in the Navy straight out of high school, eventually becoming a diver. In interviews, Alvaro talked about the silence of the deep ocean, the discipline, the isolation, and how it gave him a kind of peace. But after his service, he didn't go corporate or settle down like many of his buddies. Instead, he took a job as a tank cleaner at OceanLand. That's where he first saw Nero. At the time, Nero was a relatively new addition to the park, a massive orca captured young and brought over from the North Atlantic. He was aggressive, moody, didn't play well with other whales. But Alvaro was fascinated. They said he was unpredictable, Alvaro once said in a local interview. But I didn't see danger. I saw sadness. I saw intelligence. I saw someone waiting to be heard. That bond became legend. Within 2 years, Alvaro had moved from cleaner to junior trainer. He stayed late, studied whale behavior, watched tapes for hours. Nero wasn't just a whale to him, he was something more. Like a brother, Alvaro would say. He was the first trainer to swim with Nero, the first to kiss him on the head, the first to ride on his back during shows. It made for great photos and even greater ticket sales. But not everyone felt safe. A few junior staff members filed quiet complaints. One wrote, "Alvaro takes unnecessary risks. He doesn't follow standard safety protocols. We're taught not to turn our backs on the orcas. He does it every day." Management ignored the warnings. Alvaro brought in too much revenue. His face was on every billboard, every brochure, every commercial with the tagline, "Come see the magic of OceanLand." But maybe Alvaro believed his own story too much. He began giving interviews that sounded more emotional than factual. "I trust Nero with my life," he told a news anchor during a morning show. "He's misunderstood. People think he's dangerous, but he's just never had someone love him the right way." Behind closed doors, some of his coworkers rolled their eyes. They didn't doubt Alvaro's heart, but they worried about his judgment. Still, for 5 straight years, nothing ever went wrong. He and Nero became the main attraction, drawing tourists from across the country. Alvaro would dive into, flips off Nero's snout, hug him, and call him "mi hermano" over the stadium speakers. Kids screamed with joy. Parents filmed every second. It felt invincible. Until it wasn't. Looking back now, it's easy to question him, to say he should have known. But that's the thing about people like Alvaro, they believe in the good so deeply they sometimes miss the warning signs, flashing right in front of them. He loved Nero, and in the end, that might be why he didn't survive him. Before the crowds, the music, and the stage lights, Nero was just another young orca calf swimming beside his mother in the cold waters off the coast of Iceland. That was before the boats came. He was only 2 years old when the nets dropped. His mother thrashed and cried, but she was hauled away bleeding, and broken her cries echoing through the sea like a song of grief. Nero was torn from the pod and airlifted to a marine park in Europe. He never saw his family again. From that moment on, Nero's world shrank to the size of a swimming pool. Orcas are one of the most intelligent mammals on Earth, on par with chimps and dolphins. In the wild, they swim up to 100 miles a day. They hunt, communicate through dialects, form lifelong social bonds. But Nero didn't grow up in that world. He grew up under artificial lights, fed thawed fish in exchange for tricks. His first home was a concrete holding tank, 20 feet wide, 30 feet long, barely deep enough to float. He spent 4 years there, rotating between isolation and forced interaction. Trainers described him as difficult, unwilling, dull-eyed. But were they surprised? He was a baby whale grieving his mother, surrounded by human voices and metal gates. When OceanLand acquired him, they were told he was a challenge but trainable. That was the same year Alvaro joined the staff. And for a while it seemed like Nero's story would change, maybe even heal. But here's the truth no one put on the brochures. Nero had already attacked before. In 2010, during an after-hours session in Europe, Nero lunged at a trainer cleaning the tank. The incident was classified as minor and kept quiet. But behavioral experts warned that Nero showed signs of psychological distress, grinding his teeth on concrete walls, floating listlessly for hours, and obsessively circling the tank's perimeter. "He's depressed," one vet wrote. "He needs social contact with his own kind." Instead, Nero was flown across the Atlantic and put into solo performance training. OceanLand's head of marine operations once said, "He's big, he's bold, he looks like a showstopper, and that's exactly what we need." They weren't wrong. Nero became a star, but his body told a different story. Photos from behind the scenes showed a collapsed dorsal fin, a condition that affects nearly all captive male orcas, but almost none in the wild. It's caused by a lack of space to swim freely. Trainers noticed scars on his pectoral fins, some from self-harm, some likely from earlier rough handling. Alvaro believed he could break through Nero's pain, and to some degree he did. The whale responded to him in ways no one had seen before, following him, mimicking his movements, even playing dead during shows for laughs. But scientists and behaviorists, watching the tapes later, noticed something Alvaro never talked about. Nero wasn't playing, he was testing. He would pause before each movement, wait longer than necessary before returning to the surface. When given a command, he often hesitated, not from confusion, but from calculation. It wasn't defiance, it was awareness. This whale wasn't performing. He was deciding. And when he finally made his decision, it would cost Alvaro everything. Alvaro didn't die because of a single mistake. He died because a system built to entertain refused to listen, refused to change. OceanLand sold itself as a place of magic, where families connect with the sea when it boasted. Kids could sleep in sleeping bags beside giant aquarium glass. Birthday parties came with dolphin kisses. There were mascots, plush toys, and popcorn buckets shaped like whales. But behind the scenes, the cracks had been there for years. Internal emails revealed that staff trainers had logged over a dozen behavioral red flags from Nero in the 2 years leading up to the attack. One trainer wrote, "Edor, suri, turturn." He's not responding to commands like he used to. He stares a lot. He surfaces late. He seems somewhere else. Another email dated just 4 weeks before Alvaro's death simply read, "Nero isn't safe in the water anymore. Why is he still in the show rotation?" The answer, like always, came down to dollars and optics. Nero and Alvaro were OceanLand's biggest draw. Their image was printed on brochures handed out at Orlando International Airport. Local news did fluff pieces on their bond. Tour companies built package deals around seeing them live. To remove Nero from the lineup would have meant refunds, headlines, questions. So the concerns were quietly buried. One whistleblower, who eventually quit, said management discouraged the use of negative language in daily reports. Phrases like aggressive and refused command were replaced with non-compliant or out of sync. They weren't just silencing staff. They were rewriting reality. When asked later about safety, an OceanLand spokesperson said, "We have the highest standards in marine care. Our animals are monitored constantly." What they didn't say was that trainers were working 12-hour days, often covering for understaffed teams. That safety drills were outdated. That many of the people who knew Nero best had already left or been pushed out. And Alvaro? He saw what was happening. Friends say he brought up concerns in private about Nero's mental state, about his own doubts. But he was told the same thing over and over. "He trusts you. You're different. He only responds to you." That kind of praise is seductive. It makes you feel like you're the exception to the rules. Alvaro wanted to believe it. He had to. Because if he admitted Nero was unpredictable, if he pulled back, it wouldn't just mean losing a show. It would mean losing faith in everything he'd built. And the system knew that. They let him carry the weight, put him on the posters, let him be the face of something they didn't dare question themselves. Until the day he died in front of 3,000 people and one crying child who asked, "Is he gonna die?" After the tragedy, OceanLand released a statement mourning Alvaro as a valued member of the family. They paused Orca shows for 1 week. Then everything resumed. New trainers were brought in. Nero was placed under observation. But the pool stayed the same. So did the ticket prices. February 18th started like any other day. The Florida sun was already baking the OceanLand parking lot by 9 a.m. Alvaro Mendez parked in his usual spot, tossed his duffel over his shoulder, and walked in through the staff entrance like he had hundreds of times before. Security cameras show him stopping to grab a protein bar and wave to a junior trainer named Casey. "Big crowd today," she said. Alvaro grinned. They always are on a Saturday. But what no one saw, what no one could have measured, was what Nero had felt that morning. By the time Alvaro walked onto the back deck of Tank 3, Nero was already swimming in slow, deliberate circles. Trainers call it logging when orcas move sluggishly near the surface, like they're conserving energy or disengaging from their environment. It's a sign of stress, sometimes even depression. Alvaro leaned over the edge and called out, "¿Qué pasa, hermano?" Nero didn't respond. Usually he'd flip his tail surface with a puff or make that high-pitched chirp that Alvaro swore was his way of saying hello. But this time, nothing. A younger trainer suggested pulling Nero from the show lineup. "He's not himself today," she said. Alvaro paused, watching Nero float near the far wall. Then he shook his head. "He's just tired. We all get tired." At 1:30 p.m., Alvaro suited up for the main show. He adjusted his headset mic, checked his foot straps, and rubbed a little sea salt on his palms, his own pre-show ritual. A tech assistant walked up to him with a clipboard. "There's a note from vet staff. Nero skipped both his feeds this morning." Alvaro hesitated. Then with a half smile, he said, "He'll eat after the show. He always does." And with that, he walked out into the sunlight to greet the crowd. The music started. The announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, prepare to be amazed by the one, the only, Nero." The crowd went wild. Alvaro gave the hand signal. Nero rose from the water on cue, right on time. Relief. Applause. Cameras flashed. For 10 minutes, it looked like the magic was still there. But as Alvaro climbed the platform for the final stunt, a synchronized dive, Nero drifted further from center. He wasn't out of position. He was watching. A pause. Then Alvaro turned his back to reset. That's when Nero struck. It wasn't a slow pull or a clumsy grab. It was fast calculated. Alvaro's leg disappeared into the whale's jaws as he was yanked into the water with terrifying force. His headset cracked. His body flailed once, then vanished beneath the surface. From the stands, it looked choreographed at first, like part of the act. But the gas turned to screams when the water changed color. A cloud of red rose, spreading fast. Children sobbed, parents froze. Some trainers stood paralyzed. Others ran. One tried throwing a bucket of fish into the pool to distract Nero. It didn't work. It took nearly half an hour to get Alvaro's body back. He was gone. And Nero, he circled slowly, silent. He did not return to the platform. He did not respond to commands. He didn't flinch when rescue nets hit the water. Some said he looked calm, but to the people who knew what to look for, he looked finished. For a moment, time stopped at OceanLand. Alvaro Mendez, a man who spent nearly a decade building trust with a killer whale, was gone. The stadium was evacuated. Showtimes were suspended. News crews parked outside the gates. Within hours, the story was national. Trainer killed by orca during live show. OceanLand released a carefully worded statement calling Alvaro's death a tragic accident and an unforeseeable incident in an otherwise safe environment. They held a memorial service, invited the press, and quietly offered counseling to staff. The next day, the souvenir shop began selling Alvaro tribute pins. But what they didn't do was change. Nero wasn't retired immediately. For weeks, he was kept in isolation, circling a medical pool just 30 feet wide. There were internal debates, some calling for euthanasia, others for reintegration. In the end, OceanLand made a business decision. Nero would never perform again, but he'd stay on site for research and breeding. Alvaro's family, devastated, declined most interviews. His sister posted a photo on social media of Alvaro and Nero together, captioned, "He believed love could tame anything. He was wrong, but he died trying." Behind the scenes, former trainers began speaking out, quietly at first, then louder. One anonymous whistleblower told a reporter, "There were at least 10 red flags with Nero before Alvaro died. We documented everyone. They just weren't convenient to acknowledge." A viral expose followed. Footage leaked of Nero grinding his teeth on the tank walls, floating listlessly, showing signs of psychosis. Screenshots of ignored staff reports spread across Twitter. Hashtags like Wayun, Justice for Alvaro, and Free Nero trended for days. Public trust crumbled. Ticket sales plummeted. Protests formed outside OceanLand gates. Celebrities tweeted. Lawmakers were pressured. But then it faded. 3 months later, OceanLand quietly launched a new dolphin experience. The park rebranded. They kept Nero behind the scenes, out of sight, but not forgotten. So what now? What do we make of all this? Was Nero a monster? Was Alvaro reckless? Or were they both victims caught in the gears of an industry built on good intentions and bad incentives? We ask ourselves, should wild animals ever be held captive for our entertainment? Can we truly form bonds with creatures whose lives we've stripped away? And if we say we love them, why do we keep them in tanks? Alvaro wasn't the first to die at the hands of a captive animal. He won't be the last. But his story leaves behind something harder than grief. A question we can't afford to ignore. What would happen if we stopped pretending these were accidents and started admitting they were consequences? If this story moved you, made you think, or challenged what you believe, subscribe to Animal Story. Because truth isn't just about what we watch on stage. It's about what we choose to see behind the curtain. Wild doesn't mean evil. Captive doesn't mean safe. And sometimes loving nature isn't the same as respecting it.